Buyer demand is still showing very strong, and in particular what we've seen is post 2 rate cuts, the total number of people out there looking is very high. I think that people are recognising that we are likely to see further rate cuts throughout the rest of the year as well, which could drive home values higher. So I think a lot of people are actively looking at the moment. When we look at consumer sentiment, it's really quite clear that the interest rate cuts have increased that sentiment. What's also quite interesting is when you look at intent to buy, we've seen a really strong rise year on year in the total number of people who are stating that they think now is a good time to buy. People who had been holding off because they were perhaps waiting for home values to adjust in certain markets or for home price growth to slow in other markets, I think now are looking at the dynamics and saying, look, now is as good a time as any to actually get in. Well, we're starting to see a bit of a shift from what we were seeing last year. So if we look last year, it was really, the market was dominated by Perth, Adelaide, Brisbane. Now we've seen a really strong slowdown in the rate of growth in Perth. And in contrast, Melbourne, which really was the weakest performing city over the past few years, has actually really seen a very strong pickup in growth and was actually the fastest growing capital city in May. And actually, inner Melbourne in particular has seen one of the strongest rates of growth around the country in recent months. So it's kind of interesting that we're seeing still those different dynamics across the country, but a bit of a swap in who's the outperformer. One thing that we are seeing in Melbourne is a pretty interesting change of events where we're seeing a lot of interstate buyers looking at Melbourne's property values. Melbourne was overtaken by Perth actually in the most recent home values, which means that we're now the third cheapest city behind only Hobart and Darwin. So there's a lot of value in the Melbourne market compared to the other capitals around the country. And I think a lot of buyers are saying that this doesn't really add up if you think about the fact that Melbourne is the fastest growing city. It is the second largest city. So I think that that's driving an interest. We know that all else equal, when interest rates come down, home values generally go up. And of course, we are still seeing that population growth outpace certainly what the government was forecasting would happen. Now that dynamic, not enough homes, strong population growth is going to continue to support underlying property values. I think what happens in the rental market is going to have a big impact as well. I think that a lot of renters have seen astronomical increases in the rates they're paying in recent years. And so for a lot of these people, they might be getting into a situation where suddenly the maths is looking a little bit better when it comes to home ownership versus paying those rents.